Hello and welcome to the Operators Association podcast. My name is William Branham. I will be your DJ for today, and it's finally time to talk about Navy SEALs up in here. Now, I know you guys have talked to Zach, Green Beret, talked some Marine stuff, maybe you talked some Army Ranger stuff, but there hasn't been a lot of Navy SEAL talk up in here, and I know a lot of you guys are looking to get your contract to go to BUD/S and become a SEAL. So, and you may have heard me talk to Zach in some interviews prior to this. Just some wave tops about what it took for me to get to BUD/S, some of the lessons that I learned, some failures along the way. And in this particular episode, we're going to talk way more in depth on what those were, how the mistakes that I made, how you can not make those mistakes, some mindset things, and maybe I say some funny stories in here. I don't really know. I didn't really practice this prior to, so we're just kind of shooting from the hip a little bit. So just a little bit about me. I spent 26 years in the Navy, and 23 of those years were in Naval Special Warfare. So 23 of 26 as a SEAL or in the process of becoming a SEAL. I start that 23 years from the day that I showed up to BUD/S. So basically that means from the day I joined the Navy, it took me 3 years just to get to BUD/S. And again, I had some mistakes along the way, and we'll talk about those. So why did I become a SEAL? So I'm a little bit older than most of you. I've probably spent more time in the Navy than you guys have been alive, which is a good thing because I got a lot of lessons to share with you that will make you way better than anything I ever dreamt of being in the SEAL teams or in, Special Forces as a Green Beret or a Ranger or a Marine or whatever life whatever decisions you decide to have in your life. So basically, I grew up very poor in a little town of Meridian, Mississippi. I was a Boy Scout. I liked hunting. I loved running around in the woods. I liked to play capture the flag. I was very involved in Boy Scouts. I became an Eagle Scout, but I liked working during the summer at the Boy Scout camp. So I became a lifeguard. I worked on the rifle range. I had some fantastic mentors while doing these jobs. I learned some valuable life lessons. I like to play capture the flag, put on camouflage, run around in the woods. Worked on the rifle range. I like to shoot guns. I actually learned marksmanship while being in Boy Scouts. I didn't really learn marksmanship as just hunting. My grandfather didn't really know how to shoot. I actually taught him how to shoot later on in life. Let's see, I watched a lot of Kung Fu theater. I watched, Chuck Norris movies. So there was the movie Delta Force. So I knew about Delta Force. There was the John Wayne movie Green Beret. So that was pretty awesome. John Wayne was the men of men. And so who wouldn't want to be a Green Beret after watching that? I had heard of Army Rangers, but I had never heard of what a Navy SEAL was. But I liked the water. I liked swimming. I wasn't competitive in any way. We didn't have competitive swimming in Mississippi, at least not in Meridian. And even if we did, I wasn't good enough to do that, but I was good enough. And I think at the end of the day, I also wanted to be a SEAL. I wanted to be a ninja because I watched Kung Fu theater. I watched Chuck Norris. I watched some other shows where they were, very into martial arts, and I wanted to do that, and I wanted to be a ninja because that was the pinnacle of badassery at the time when I was growing up. So like I said, back to Boy Scouts, I was, when I was probably after my 10th grade year, I had an opportunity to go to the National Jamboree, and basically that's this giant Boy Scouting event that takes place in Fort A.P. Hill, Virginia, and Boy Scouts from all over the world come there. And like I said, I was very poor when I was growing up. I had free lunches. I vowed that I would never be poor like that again once I left the house. And so, but I didn't really know what that process was going to be. I always knew that I would join the military. I wanted to be part of some kind of small unit that ran around in the woods, that shot guns, that maybe they scuba dove, they jumped out of airplanes, and they did cool stuff like that, very ninja-esque. So someone told me about, Army Rangers are the best thing out there. So I thought maybe I'll become an Army Ranger. I didn't really know how to do that. But also the movie Top Gun was out. So maybe I want to be an F-14 pilot because those planes were cool where the wings come out straight to slow down. And when they go fast, they fold back. And so it was a very cool aircraft. And then, movies are a great way to get you to want to do whatever that person is doing, that actor in the movie is doing. So I went on this national jamboree, and basically the troop that I was in, we didn't have enough people to really go, so we partnered up with another troop over in Alabama, and I met a kid in that troop, and he also wanted to be an F-14 pilot, but he also wanted to be a Navy SEAL, and I was like, what's a Navy SEAL? That sounds cool. He was like, oh yeah, they swim underwater, they jump out of airplanes, they shoot guns, they blow stuff up, they run around in the woods. They're this highly elite special forces unit in the Navy. And I was like, I didn't know the Navy had anything like that. I actually don't like the Navy. My dad was in the Navy. He was a CB, which was fine, but I grew up in Meridian, Mississippi, and we had a lot of young sailors going to schools there, and they were a bunch of idiots. Like, they would be wearing their bell bottoms and their Navy uniform, which was the most unattractive uniform on the planet at the time, and potentially still could be. And they just acted like a bunch of idiots out in town. And so the Navy was the bottom. I would never, ever do that. However, this guy got me all jazzed up on wanting to be a Navy SEAL because there was some focus there. Wanted to be a Navy SEAL and an F-14 pilot. So we did the National Jamboree where I ended up meeting Steven Spielberg. I didn't even know how cool he was at the time. I met Steven Spielberg, and I met George Bush Sr. So I met a president of the United States, and I met one of the most innovative filmmakers of all time on this event. And I didn't pay for this. Remember, I was very poor growing up. I was very involved in Boy Scouts. So the Boy Scout council that I belonged to actually paid for me to go. So it was a super cool trip. I got to do some whitewater rafting and play paintball and other cool things like that. But so fast forward, I go to summer camp at the camp that I worked at after the National Jamboree. And there's a pilot there in the that came out to talk to us because the Naval Air Station in Meridian is a training squadron for pilots. And after he sort of talked about being in the Navy and being a pilot, I went up to him and I was like, "Hey man, I want to be a F-14 pilot, and I also want to be a Navy SEAL." And he was like, "Oh, you want to be a Navy SEAL? Those guys are badass." In my OCS class, there was a SEAL in there, and he was the class leader because he was a former enlisted guy. He went to school, got his commission, and then he was going through OCS. And anytime the class got into trouble, the drill instructor would take him out, and he would do 8-count bodybuilders around the building, and the guy would come back in for like an hour, and then come back in and not even be breaking a sweat. And so I was like, that's what I want to be. I want to be one of those guys that can just work really hard and not even like perspire. So after these two scouting events, just before and this was the summer between 11th and 12th grade, the Navy recruiter called my grandmother's house where I was at. He called her house. I answered the phone, and he's like, "Hey man, have you ever thought about joining the Navy?" And I was like, "Well, actually, I used to never really want to join the Navy, but now I'm looking. I do. I want to be a Navy SEAL, and I want to be an F-14 pilot." So the recruiter was like, "Awesome. Why don't you come down to our recruiting station? Here's the address, and let's talk about it. I can show you a movie all about being a SEAL and things like that, and we can maybe figure out a plan for you." So I went down to the recruiter's office. I watched the cheesiest GCI movie that has ever existed, I think. I wish I could find that movie so that I could watch it now and just to get a good chuckle out of it. But basically it was, 6 or 8 guys wearing black wetsuits. They jumped out of a helicopter into the ocean. They started up a little rubber boat. They drove into a beach somewhere. They hid it. They snuck around with some guns. They set up like a an observation point of a building, watched the building for a little while. Maybe there was some dialogue in there. I don't really remember. And then the next scene is it shows them like sneaking up on the building, putting demolition charges, and then leaving the building, like running out of the building really quickly. And then, the building blows up behind them with terrible cinematography, terrible, like Steven Spielberg was not a part of making the explosion graphics for that video. But I saw that and I was like, that's the coolest thing I've ever seen in my life. Let's do it. Where do I sign? And they're like, hold on, easy. First thing you got to do, okay, you want to do this, so let's sign you up to take the ASVAB, which is just an assessment to kind of see where you are, you're problem solving and things like that. So I took the ASVAB and they were like, oh, you scored pretty well. So let's find a Navy job for you. I was like, awesome. I want to be a SEAL. That's what I want to do. So they said, okay, but first you have to have a Navy job because that's how you advance in the Navy. I'm like, I don't really want that. I want to be a SEAL and then I want to fly F-14. They're like, okay, easy, Tiger, one step at a time. So I eventually decided to become a gunner's mate because guns, of course, has a direct correlation with being a SEAL and shooting guns. But what I didn't know is even though the job description said hydraulics, electronics, and pneumatics, I didn't care what the job description said. I only wanted to become a SEAL. So I signed up for that. So I signed up to be a gunner's mate in the delayed entry program. And basically, I joined the Navy-ish. I loosely joined the Navy, not really a binding contract. I didn't know that at the time. Under the delayed entry program before I started my 12th grade of high school. So I knew all the way through my 12th grade of high school, I'm going to go and join the Navy on July 14th after I graduated high school, provided I graduated. I wasn't the best student, but that's a story for another time. So while I was in the delayed entry program, the recruiters had these quarterly events where they would bring us out and do things like the Navy PT test or a cookout or things like that, just to kind of give you an idea and make you think about physical fitness a little bit and being in the Navy, and they made it seem super fun. And so we showed up one time to one of these events and they were talking about. They said, okay, we're going to do the Navy PRT, and it's just push-ups, sit-ups, and a run. And I performed pretty good on that event. I was an okay runner, and I was strong enough to crank out however many push-ups they wanted us to do, and sit-ups I was pretty good at. And so I had a pretty good feeling that I would have no problem passing the SEAL screening test when I took it because I was an okay runner and I was a good enough swimmer. So I finally graduated high school. And really at that time, all I cared about were girls, becoming a SEAL, and maybe even becoming a ninja. Because I thought maybe, becoming a SEAL would help me become a ninja a little bit faster with some other skills under my belt. So when it was time to leave to go to MEPS, they bought me a bus ticket on a Greyhound bus. So my family took me down to the Greyhound station with one change of clothes. They said, don't bring any more than one change of clothes with you and maybe some toiletries. So I go down, I say goodbye to my family. I get on this bus and 2.5 hours later arrive in Jackson, Mississippi. Some military person says, okay, come on, all of you people going to MEPS. And they put us in a van and they took us to a motel, not a hotel, a motel. And when you think of the lowest quality of motel that you've ever stayed in, take it 3 steps lower, and that's where we were. That's where they put us up. It was, I think it must have been for free or something, or maybe the motel paid. It was the most seedy area I've ever been in my life, and I again grew up very poor. I slept in the woods with no tent or anything else. It was definitely an experience. And just to kind of give you an idea, it was very kind of inner city. And most of the guys that I was with were kind of more inner city. And so my roommate and a bunch of other dudes, they started talking about, hey man, there's this crack whore out here, and she said that she'll do tricks for $25. And I was like, what? A crack whore? Is that even a real thing? Like, I heard stories or songs or whatever, but I've never been exposed to anything like that. So now there's this girl running around, the hallways, just being lippy, and I don't really know what's going on, but I know that I don't want to be a part of this. It's about midnight now, maybe later than that, and we have to be up at 6. So I'm like, yo, I need to sleep because, I have a mission. I want to be a SEAL. So my roommate leaves. I don't know what time he comes back in, but I know at 5:30 in the morning when I got up, he was not ready to get up. Maybe I think some of those guys maybe even failed some drug tests at MEPS the next day. So, but anyway, that was my first exposure to a, air quotes here, crack whore. And I wasn't really sure what was going to happen with that whole thing. But anyway, the next day I showed up at MEPS. They do drug testing, they do hearing tests, they kind of dig into your background a little bit about if you've been arrested or criminal record or anything like that. They do some blood draws, hearing tests. So interesting thing about the hearing test is, growing up, I never used EarPro in any way, shape, or form. I grew up like driving tractors and cutting grass to make money, shooting guns. I never protected my hearing ever. And so an interesting thing with the hearing test is I was like, so I want to be, and then they're like, so what do you want to do? And I said, always, I want to be a Navy SEAL and I want to be an F-14 pilot. And they said, well, your hearing, you can be a SEAL, but with your current scores, you're not going to make it into the pilot program because they need to have really good hearing for whatever reason. I mean, my hearing wasn't bad, but it didn't meet the threshold to be a pilot. So, but I wasn't interested in that. I was just really more interested I wasn't interested in them telling me no. I was interested in just getting to buds. So let's get this party started. So after, I do my duck walk and I sign the paperwork to, you sign paperwork many times along the way. For my 4-year contract, and then I took the oath, and then I was officially in the Navy. And I went from the MEP station straight to the airport where I flew up to Chicago, Illinois. No idea where I was going or what I was going to do when I got there. It was completely unknown. And I had never done an adventure like this. Now I'm 18 years old and I'm full adventure mode right now. First time really flying on an airplane. Fly to Chicago. O'Hare Airport is gigantic, and somehow I found the Navy liaison there. They shuttled a bunch of us down to a bus, and then we get on a bus and we take the bus about an hour and a half north up to Great Lakes, Illinois. We get up there. It's about 1 o'clock in the morning ish, and they, the instructors or the company commanders, they're like, all right, get up, get in line up, stand straight. All right. And they march us down to this giant building that has, I think it's as big as a football field inside, and it's just full of cots. And there's a stack of blankets and sheets and pillows, and you grab your blanket, sheet, and pillow, and then you go and they say, go get some sleep, and we'll be back at 6 a.m. to take you to get you ready for boot camp. And so I was like, dude, and the room is packed. You just have to find an empty cot. You make your bed, and then you go to sleep. And by the way, the light is still on, so you sleep with the light on, no big deal. These other people had been there for several hours, sleeping soundly, while a bunch of ruckus comes in and to get set up for our nightly sleep, so that we can get up and figure out what this boot camp thing has to do for us. Now, remember, they told me to pack one change of clothes. I've been wearing these same clothes. Started at 5:30 the day before. Now, the first day of boot camp, they segregate us. They put us into a place. So I've been wearing these clothes now. I'm going on 2 days. I'm a little funky smelling. Haven't had a chance to shower. So this is my introduction into boot camp, but not a big deal. Let's see. So I get to Great Lakes. They put us into, I don't remember how they screened us, but they screened us into different companies. And I ended up in a 900 company. And basically that means that we were the last 3 weeks of boot camp, we were part of the graduation ceremonies. And it was either, twirling a rifle and being that group, or body snatchers, which we were those guys. If you are standing there at graduation and you lock your knees, somehow that makes you pass out. And so body snatchers were in charge of standing behind everyone and looking for people that were about to pass out or who were passing out. And then they'd run up and grab them and take them to the back so that they didn't make a big scene about passing out in a graduation ceremony. But anyway, I get to my company and they say, okay, it's about half full of guys. It's filling up. And they say, go in there, find a place to sleep, find yourself a rack. So I go in, I find a rack, and the first guy that I meet, he's like, hey, shipmate, welcome to Great Lakes. And I'm like, whoa, brother, you are way more motivated to be a Navy guy than I am. But the thing about boot camp, it's not about training you. And the thing about Navy boot camp, it's probably the least physical boot camp in the world. I think the Coast Guard even has a more demanding boot camp than the Navy does. My sister went into the Air National Guard, and she was at least running obstacle courses and doing things like that. The Navy, we learned how to fold clothes, make our bed, and a little bit of marching. Not much more than that. So if you are looking for boot camp to be a way to get you into a little bit better shape, you better be in better shape before you get there. What boot camp is really about, it's about removing whatever identity you had before you showed up, assimilating you into the system. It's similar to going to prison, I believe, but really they're there to teach you core values of the Navy, honor, courage, and commitment, and also teaching you attention to detail. So you get out of it what you put into it, really, at the end of the day. So about 4 weeks into boot camp, it's time for us to, if you want to, you can go take the SEAL screening test. And so we'd already been in the pool once to see if anyone could swim and how to take your clothes off in the water and tie them and make them into life jackets. That was kind of a cool evolution. So I'm thinking this is going to be pretty easy for me. So I show up for the swim. There's about 10 of us. Pass the swim. A couple guys didn't pass the swim. Change clothes, and then start doing push-ups. And I think I was aiming for the bottom number, and I think it was you need to do 52 push-ups, and I got to about 46 push-ups, and I was like, I don't think I can do any more. So I failed the fitness test, the screening test, the first time I took it. This is mistake number one. This brings me around to mistake number one. I never practiced doing the screening test all at once. I never practiced doing everything together. And I also never practiced doing more than the minimum standard. I was only shooting for the minimum standard. Of course I can do 52 push-ups or whatever the number was, or 5 or 7 pull-ups. I never practiced doing more, and I never practiced doing everything in order as you're given the test. So, my arms just wouldn't push anymore after number 48 push-up because I worked really hard swimming. So mistake number one, I didn't practice doing the event back to back to back to back, and I didn't practice maxing out the number of push-ups, pull-ups, and sit-ups that I could do. I practiced doing the minimum standard. So that's mistake number one. Eventually, I graduated boot camp and off to A school. So A school is that, I talked about earlier, gunner's mate has to do with guns, but really gunner's mate A school has nothing really to do with guns or small arms. It's electronics, pneumatics, and hydraulics. But unlike boot camp, when you get to A school, they treat you a little more like a grown-up. And my A school was 6 months long. So there were several other guys that wanted to take the SEAL screening test or they've already passed the SEAL screening test. They passed it in boot camp. And so I kind of got with those guys And at lunch every day, we would just go to one person's room and we would just do circuits of push-ups, pull-ups, and sit-ups. The mistake that I made there is I didn't run. Like, I got pretty good at push-ups, pull-ups, and sit-ups, but I didn't run almost ever. A huge mistake. So mistake number 2 is, and I paid for this mistake many times over, if you're showing up for one of these, any one of these programs, if you want to be a SEAL, a Green Beret, a Army Ranger, Air Force CCT guy, a Marine Recon or MARSOC guy, it doesn't matter. You want to be a police officer, you need to run. Like, running is this great divider that if you don't do it, you're going to suck at it. Like, you might be okay, you might have 1 or 2 good days, but if you don't consistently run, and it is a perishable skill, if you don't consistently run, you're going to suck at running. And all of these things require running, all of these programs. So in BUD/S, you run 6 miles a day just to eat. So it's a mile to get to chow, it's a mile to get back to whatever evolution you need to, and then a mile for lunch, and a mile back, and then a mile for dinner, and a mile back. So you haven't even done like conditioning runs or 4-mile time runs or anything else. You're running 6 miles a day just to eat. So keep that in mind. So if you're not running, you need to start running. My mistake number 2. So I work really hard. I get through A school. We're about a month before graduation. I'm high enough in the class, it came time to pick orders. And this was mistake number 3 for me, is I chose to go to another school for 4 more months in order to get in better shape to go to BUD/S. Now, I had an opportunity, I had plenty of other opportunities to screen, to take the SEAL screening test again. I didn't want to do it. Number 1, it was cold as balls up there in north of Chicago in the wintertime, and that's when I was there. And I didn't like getting up early in the morning. I didn't want to get up at 4:30 in the morning to go to the other side of the base to take the SEAL test. I thought, you know what? I'll wait for it to get a little bit warmer. I made excuses. Clearly, I didn't want it bad enough at the time. Mistake. And I didn't tell people what my full intentions were. The Navy's job is to put you on a ship. This is why America is the biggest superpower in the world, is because we own the oceans, and the Navy does that. That's their job, is to put the best and brightest on ships to control the oceans. The end. Make no mistake about it. They don't care about you becoming a SEAL or becoming, an Army guy, becoming a Green Beret or a Ranger or Marine Corps or anything else. So my mistake was I didn't tell the people that mattered what I wanted to do. If I had, then they would have said, go take the test now, get it done, pass it, and take it as many times as you need to pass it so that you can go. What I ended up doing is I took orders to another technical school. I took orders to learn how to work on a missile launcher for Tomahawk missiles. So it was 4 months long. I thought, I will take this school, I'll get in better shape for 4 months, and then I'll screen and I'll go to BUD/S. Well, what I didn't know is after that school, I have 24 months of obligated service to the Navy. And that is, that's a long time if you want to go to BUD/S. So mistake number 3 is I didn't tell the people that mattered what I wanted to do, and I didn't commit to what I wanted to do. So you guys stay awesome. Again, this is William Branham, retired Navy SEAL, speaking to you from Oahu, Hawaii. And this is the Operators Association podcast. You guys stay awesome, and I'll talk to you soon.